Professor Paul Miller, and we are recording today from the Nasir Harris Podcast Studio at the Boyer House of the Summerdale campus of Central Penn College. On today's episode of the podcast, we will be speaking with Theatre Director Janet Bixler about her upcoming Swords and Shakespeare event taking place on Thursday, June 7th at 6:30 and Friday, June 8th at Central Penn College. Later on in the program, we'll be speaking with Adrienne Thoman about June events. So Adrienne will be coming up with us in just a little bit. So we are sitting here today with Theatre Director Janet Bixler. Janet, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
And, of course, we are also here with Dalen Davis, who's a nightly news reporter. This is not certainly your first time on the podcast either. We got two podcast veterans here. So, Dalen, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, Dalen, we'll start with you because, Janet, I know that we can go on and on. But actually, before we get started, there is something that I wanted to tell you, Janet. Obviously, and podcast listeners know all about my humanities film series back in April of the Big Lebowski. And Janet, I wanted to personally say thank you for everything that you did to help that night go off without a hitch. It was an amazing event. We had over 40 people in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater, and you were so gracious with your time to help me. It was wonderful to have you there. You were helping me with the logistics. I know I was probably a little frazzled on those days, and I apologize for that, but it really did mean a lot to me. It meant a lot to my career, and it was such an amazing opportunity that I had. So I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for everything that you did.
Well, you are very welcome, and it was so much fun to see the different people that came to attend the Big Lebowski, that they chose to come in costume. I loved that, and I also loved your 30-minute presentation prior to the screening. Was very informative, and I love the whole connection to the film noir genre.
What's very interesting, and again, we won't go into too much detail about that, but what's very interesting about the Coen brothers is all of their films actually are considered neo-noirs, so they're all throwbacks, and every single one of them has that anti-hero character that we talked about. So please check out the Nightly News YouTube page if you'd like to check out my presentation, and you should probably watch The Big Lebowski afterwards so you bring everything together. But the night just went perfectly. Honestly, I could not have been more proud of not only me, and that's what's so important. Anyone out there listening who's putting together some type of event, even if the event does center on you, as it did in this case, there were 15, 20 people involved in the whole thing, from people with the nightly news helping sell things. Curtis was there. Samantha was there. We were helping raise money for Curtis's Leukemia Lymphoma Society Man of the Year campaign. He did well. We used it as a nightly news fundraiser. We did well. And not only that, I had to have a few people stay afterward and help us clean the place up after, there's a little bit of popcorn and things on the floor. So it was very nice. We had tables set up for everybody to eat their dinner. It was such an amazing night, and I'm proud to say that you're my colleague, and I'm proud that you were there to help me out, and I appreciate that so much. Well, we are going to move on. Obviously, every term you have something going on in the theater, and every single term we try to get you down here and we try to talk about the things that you have going on. Before we get too far into this, we haven't had you on since Reclaiming My Time, and I was wondering if you could just chat with us a bit about, now that you've done it and you actually just reincarnated it this week for several local schools. Can you tell us, now that you've had a chance to reflect and breathe since that was all over, what did it mean to you, and what were some of the things that people in the community said?
Well, it was a real honor to be able to direct Professor Chow's original work, Reclaiming My Time, an American Griot Project. She had gone out to interview women who lived during the Civil Rights and Jim Crow era, and then she created poetry, and then we wove the poetry into a play. One of the things I love so much about the play is that Maria was really a generous playwright in that she did not put any demands on me as the director, and she released all the theatrical vision to me. And that doesn't always happen when you're working collaboratively with a playwright. They sometimes like to control the actual picture the audience will see. But having the complete control over that picture, I always saw it staged in the round because it's a story of many stories told from the griots, who are ancient storytellers. So using the theatrical layout of Theater in the Round was really important. And I was really blessed to work with 12 female actors who most of them did not ever work in Theater in the Round. And it's a very unique experience as an actor because you never want your back to be at your audience. But in Theater in the Round, you will always have a back at some audience. And so what does it mean to be able to tell a story and to act knowing that the audience will not always see your face? And they became more and more comfortable with it, and I was really proud of them. And then because they became comfortable, the ability to dynamically weave one poem to the next poem to create a storyline became easier, and everything was so organic, and that was a blessing. And that's the way I love to work. As you mentioned, the original shows were produced in March, and we had 4 sold-out houses of over 100 audience members each night.
And there were times that you were pulling in more chairs for people who were coming in.
Yes. And then because it was so popular, and on that first opening night, we had 5 students from the Nativity School in Harrisburg, and I spoke with them. Shout out to Casey Hicks over in our admissions department, who brought the 4 young 8th graders to our show. I spoke to the young men, and they were impressed by the show, and they had a million questions. And then I thought, oh, we should perform this for students. And so as soon as the matinee performance closed in March, I asked the ladies and the crew, because the crew is very important in the show, if they would be willing to perform it again for school children to visit the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. They agreed, and immediately on Monday following the matinee show, I reached out to our administration and other department chairs asking if they would be able to financially support the production, because the production was a couple $1,000s to produce it again just for 2 days. And we got that support immediately. So thank you very much to Central Penn College, the administration, for supporting the sharing of original theater that tells, of course, the human story, but the human stories that are so close to home, supporting Professor Chow in her literary work and supporting my work as a theater artist. So big thank you to Central Penn College for that. And we did serve 6 different schools.
That's incredible.
The Thursday performance, we brought in middle school students from East Pennsboro Middle School. We brought in all of the Nativity School, which was about 50 students, and they're all middle school boys. And then we brought in a high school group from the Susquehanna Township High School Performing Arts Program. And then the second day we did it, we brought in 2 high school groups, both focused on female empowerment. One from SciTech High and one from CDE's high school. And then we brought in the majority of middle schoolers studying performing arts at Marshall Elementary Middle School in the Harrisburg City School District. So, and then we were able to open up some seats to our faculty and staff who hadn't been able to see it, as well as some local poets and actors and theater practitioners who couldn't see it on the first run. So we had 2 full houses.
6 for 6, eh?
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it was so incredible. I was so honored to have a very small part in the play. And when I was asked, it was something that I was so happy to do. And I came down here, and of course I did some research about the Geeter with the Heater, who was, I wasn't necessarily playing, but I was in that mold, and I just appreciate that. But I'm so proud of you and all the. I know that this is a project that we've talked to Maria about for years, and I'm so happy that she was able to bring it to the stage. So I'll tell you what, we'll have to have you down next time, and we'll talk a little bit more about maybe what the future holds with that production. But I do want to flash forward here to our spring production. So your goal is, and you've done very well with this goal, is to have something every single term. And I understand, of course, that can be somewhat complex. But for our spring term, you are offering the Swords and Shakespeare. There will be a free public performance on Thursday, June 7th. That'll be at 6:30. And there will be something for alumni, faculty and staff, and other invited guests on Friday, June the 8th at 6:30. Both of these will take place in the Student Fellowship Amphitheater on the Central Penn College Summerdale campus. For any of you who've ever been to the Boyer House before, it's just right around the corner, and your best bet is to park along the College Hill Road entrance by the basketball course, and you can walk right down, so it's just a short walk. I guess my first question is, why outside?
Well, ever since I had the opportunity to become the theater director back in 2013, 14, immediately people started to say, are you going to use the student fellowship area? Because it is a perfect amphitheater. And I'm like, I know, and I want to, and we'll have to see about that. And then Sarah Blumenshine, who was our alumni coordinator, an amazing person, doing so many events for our alumni and building our relationship with our alumni. She and I got to talking, it was probably a year ago, it was a year ago now, with Matt Lane, the former director of the foundation, about let's do a special alumni theater event to bring them back on campus, just so that they can network with each other, socialize with each other, and with our faculty and staff who we're so small here that we really know each other, and to continue those relationships and to do some theater for them and to use the amphitheater. And thus came up with this idea.
Well, I want to come to Dalen here. Dalen is obviously a nightly news reporter. You've been on the show several times, and
Yes.
You're doing a wonderful job. But this is the first time you're stepping into the theater. Why did this show gravitate you in? What was it about this show particularly that made you want to get involved with what Janet has going on with Swords and Shakespeare?
I just want to first thank Miss Janet Bixler for the opportunity. Just seeing how much success and good energy and vibes she's brought to Central Penn, it was just very inspiring. And I've always walking in and out of the underground, stopping past to speak, and always say hi to Miss Janet Bixler. And she just always shows good, positive attitude. And whenever I get a chance, I always ask, can I help out with, like she said, the crew, whether it's cleaning the theater or just propping it for the upcoming events or anything. I just always try to help out. And I just saw an opportunity, and just got very excited towards just helping her out, knowing that she's always just willing to give students opportunities to, be a part of Central Penn. Because, students nowadays always say, oh, there's nothing really to do around Central Penn.
I hate hearing that.
Yeah, and so...
Well, for one, how about your homework? That's a good place to start.
Sure.
But let me ask you, though. I mean, this is obviously... hand-to-hand combat, I suppose you could say, at least. Do you think that, obviously you're part of the basketball team,
Yes, sir.
and by the way, sir, we are very much looking forward. I don't know how closely you followed our live streaming of the baseball,
Yes.
but you're next. So tell your folks that they're going to be able to see you on our YouTube page, so
Will
look
do.
forward to that. But here's my question. With the hand-to-hand combat that's going on with the Swords and Shakespeare, do you think the fact that you're an athlete kind of drew you to this?
Of course, it's definitely learning experience. It's not necessarily learning as far as how to dribble a basketball, but as far as the movement and the footwork and the physicality, it's definitely, I don't want to say an easy transition, but it's definitely an understanding, and I can adjust to it. It's not as fast as basketball, but as far as the hand placement and the footwork and everything, it's kind of a correlation in between the two.
Well, that's exactly true. I mean, of course, sword fighting and basketball, there's not quite that correlation, but especially when you're doing something when you're not intending to hurt somebody,
Right.
It's almost like, okay, I'm going to bring out a little bit about me. Now, not so much anymore, but when I was growing up, I was a big fan of WWE, and I always hated when people say, oh, well, that's fake. Listen, I think we're beyond the point where we all realize that, yes, it's scripted. There's a big difference between being scripted and being fake, because those guys are doing crazy moves to
Right.
one another and they're friends. They do not want to hurt each other. They're putting people through tables that are lit on fire and all this. You have to do all of your moves perfectly so you don't legitimately break someone's neck.
Yes.
And unfortunately, like Austin and people like that have had major injuries because people didn't do their moves properly. You could really injure somebody doing these things.
Well, that is, one of the precautions that we definitely go over during the studio, and Dan, he does a very good job at explaining the like the use of the swords that we use. Is, I think I'd use 2 daggers in the play. We use like various equipments and safety tools, and we definitely cover those as well. So.
And that is a great segue. We wouldn't be doing this performance, Swords and Shakespeare, scenes of conflict and combat, without employing the amazing talent of Dan Burke, who is the owner of Safe Violence by Dan Burke. He is, his whole life here in central Pennsylvania is to choreograph amazing fight scenes for live theater, television, and film. He's been used not only in local theaters around our school, Central Penn College, but he has been called to New York, to Virginia, to work in colleges like ours, in regional theater, in community theater, in professional theater, and as well as, like I said, film and television. He's been doing stage combat. He started in college at the Philadelphia School for the Arts, and he was studying acting, and then he got a specialty in stage combat, and he never stopped. As when he left college, he continued to do stage combat, and now it is his life's blood. It is his day-to-day, in-and-out job. And an interesting fact, he and I went to high school together at what was then the Harrisburg Arts Magnet School. So we have a connection, but like Dalen said, we couldn't do this show, Swords and Shakespeare, without Dan Burke, because he is the fight choreographer. He brings the weapons. They're all real weapons. All the broadswords, the rapiers, and the daggers are all real. They've been blunted for safety, but if used incorrectly, you can maim and injure and potentially kill if you hit a temple with the broadsword. And there is this one move that our student, Brianna McCoy, does against one of our middle school actors with a broadsword. They're fighting with broadswords. And Brianna slices each side of her and across her stomach. And I'm watching it in rehearsal, and I think every single time this little middle school kid is going down. I mean, and they're not, of course, performing at full speed. Even when we see it done for performance, it's never at full speed, but the audience, think it is, because everything is really controlled. So it's also beneficial. A lot of the actors that we have in Swords and Shakespeare have an athletic background. Like Dalen is a basketball player who is very dedicated to his sport and his athletic wellness. We have Naja Fink, who is also a basketball player who is also very dedicated to his training. We have 2 ladies from the community who are extremely athletic. One teaches water aerobics, and the other one is just really a diehard go to the gym every day person, and it's really beneficial. We have Adrienne Thoman, a Zumba instructor, a marathon runner. She is our activities director. She's very athletic. We have, I mentioned the little middle school girl. She's 12 years old, fighting against Brianna with a broadsword, fighting against Sydney, who is an athlete with a broadsword. She fights with Naja, who, how tall is Naja?
Naja's about at least 6'4", 6'5".
Right, and she's 12, and she's on the shorter side of 12. They wrestle.
Alex, who you fight and attempt to kill. He is a professional dancer. We thank you for remembering that. We have Sherry Long, who is one of our recent alums here at school,
and former Nightly News president.
Yes, and she is athletic. She's a hiker and a runner. Almost all of our actor combatants have athletic background.
So, Janet, I wanted to talk a little bit about the differences in the 2 shows. We'll start with the Thursday, June 7th show, and this is a free public performance. Again, it's in the Student Fellowship Amphitheater that's just right around the corner from the Boyer House. Your best bet is to park in the College Hill Road parking lots next to the basketball courts. So talk a little bit about how and what to expect for the show that's open to the public, one that many of our listeners will be checking out.
Right. I hope a lot of our students will come out because we're going to start at 6:30 and it's only an hour-long show. It's going to be outside. It's going to be beautiful. I've put out an invitation to all the Thursday night professors in hopes that they can work it into their night's education, that they can bring their classes for that hour. How the show is structured, it begins with a narrator. And the narrator is played by a 12-year-old local actor. who recently, when he was 10, he played Puck in Midsummer Night's Dream. And he will be playing the narrator, where Dana Kinsey, a local playwright, wrote in iambic pentameter original pieces of poetry to tie the different scenes together. So once he opens the show, then the fight scenes begin. And you will see fight scenes from Macbeth. You will see fight scenes from Romeo and Juliet. You will see fight scenes from King Lear, As You Like It. You'll also see fight scenes from Henry IV, Part 1. That's with Joan of Arc. So our narrator will lead you into each fight scene, and then the fight scene ensues.
Now, you're also offering a special alumni performance, but it's not just for alumni. This is for faculty, for staff, for alumni, and for other invited guests. So this is more of an invitation type thing. Now, tell us a little bit more about how this is going to be. I do know that there is a terrific menu prepared by the conference center with Mercutio's roasted red pepper chicken skewers, witch's stew bites, brie bites of Capulets with apricot marmalade, all kinds of different things. And we're also going to have a cash bar featuring 0 Day, if I'm not mistaken. So tell us a little bit. So if you are an alumni or faculty or staff who's listening, sell me on why I would want to come to Friday rather than Thursday.
Well, Friday is a great night because it focuses on the alumni. This whole event was created for the alumni to be able to get together, socialize, and potentially make more connections with our faculty and staff, guests from our career services department, local businesses and organizations that might want to attend, as well as just invited guests from the community. It's an opportunity at 6:30 when everyone arrives, there will be a good half hour to 40 minutes where it'll just be eating and drinking and socializing. Then we will close down the bar. We will do our hour-long show, and then there will be more time to eat and drink and socialize. So it's really an event for the alumni to experience our campus, because I imagine most of our alumni did not experience this student fellowship area for a place of live theater.
Well, also, to be honest with you, Janet, a lot of our alumni have never really experienced a whole lot of theater because the Underground's still relatively new from the last few years. So I've actually heard from many alumni that they're very happy that we have such a venue, and that they were kind of sad that they didn't have the venue back when they were in school. So obviously, Swords and Shakespeare, big production, outdoor, student fellowship amphitheater. It's going to be a free performance on Thursday, June 7th at 6:30. It's going to be a special alumni, faculty, staff, and career services guests on Friday, June the 8th at 6:30.
Oh, and I was told to mention by the president of the Alumni Association here at school and one of the members of the Alumni Association that the June 8th event for alumni, faculty, staff, invited guests is a great date night. So get a babysitter. It's right at 6:30, so you come straight from work. Get a babysitter. It's a good date night activity.
I'm already planning it to be a date night. So, Janet, before we get you out of here, I do want to ask you, you've got a lot of other things coming up and planned for 2018. Can you give us just a sneak preview about what we have coming up in the fall, as summer and fall?
Yes. In August, we are on the theater schedule, which you can find at our website,
which is centralpenn.edu/theater.
You will see August is Stand Up, Speak Out, and Adrienne Thoman, whose picture is on the schedule for that event, our activities director. We chose to do a social justice type piece of theater called 6 Degrees of MLK, where we are reaching out to different communities that serve members that are disenfranchised or marginalized, members of the people living with AIDS, the LGBT community. We're looking to speak with people who are in the communities of immigration and the refugees. We're looking to speak with communities of women who have broken the glass ceiling. We're looking to speak with people in the communities where they suffer chronic illness. But all these individuals are often dismissed and marginalized, and we're looking for people from the communities or advocates in those communities where they've seen a wrong and they stood up, took action, and made it right, like MLK.
Fantastic.
So we're looking for actual storytellers. That night will be storytelling, possibly some musical theater thrown in there. Definitely watch our web page here at Central Penn, as well as our Facebook page.
You can find the Capital Blue Cross Theater on Facebook by searching for Capital Blue Cross Theater at Central Penn College.
And if you're a member of one of those groups, and you have a story to tell because you saw wrong and you made it right and you stood up and you took action, contact me through the Facebook page, message me, or you can email me at Janet Bixler, that's B as in boy, IXLER, at centralpenn.edu, because we are still looking for storytellers. And then in August, very late in August, we will begin the planning for the 4th annual student created play.
I'm very much looking forward to this. I love everything you do, to be honest with you. But to me, what I especially love coming to see is the student created original work. I think it's just wonderful because I get to talk to some of the students who are there, and they're helping me through the process and explaining. I remember we had you on last year, and you were talking about how you literally went from nothing to having a script. It was really, to me, and I'm sure to you, what theater is all about. Coming up, having an idea, writing it together, putting it all together, and then having it all come together and seeing what the outcome is. So, Janet, I just can't thank you enough, and we certainly will relay all of the necessary contact information. Dalen, I do want to ask you one final question before we wrap up for the day. Obviously, you've been with the Nightly News for quite some time.
Yes,
You're
sir.
very involved on campus. You're a part of the Nightway. Obviously, you're looking forward to basketball season. What does it mean to have Swords and Shakespeare on your resume going forward?
It's definitely a blessing, and just want to succeed through this opportunity to be able to set, I guess, an example for incoming students as well, that, you know, that this school definitely does have a lot of opportunities to offer towards, you know, a career or just finding new things to do. And I'm definitely just trying to expand my options as far as for my future. And I definitely want to take. I actually am taking this pretty serious. I'm
Of course you are.
I'm in and out of.
You know what it's like to be on a team.
Yes, of course. In and out Miss Janet Bixler's office. Learning new strategies as far as what actors actually do. For an example, highlighting the first word of a line and all the way until the last word, just for remembrance and recollection as far as your lines and everything. So, but as far as being on my resume, it's definitely an honor, and I'm excited to be a part of something new, and I'm definitely looking forward to, you know, meeting the alumni and seeing new students and being a part of something special here at Central Penn.
Thank you very much, Dalen. Okay, well, I have to thank you both very much. I hope and continue looking back, checking the Capital Blue Cross Theater Facebook page, checking the Nightly News page. Dalen has a story coming up. We're going to be covering this. We did a Facebook Live yesterday, quick, and that was really cool. So I just want you guys to know how much I really appreciate you coming down today, and we're going to do everything we can to pack this house. So
Thank you.
Well, Janet, thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me again.
Dalen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Professor.
All right, so for Theater Director Janet Bixler and Nightly News reporter Dalen Davis, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll be right back with Adrienne Thoman talking about June events on the Nightly News podcast.
Hi, this is Brian Christiana. Thank you for listening to the Nightly News podcast, a part of the Nightly News Media Club here at Central Penn College.
Welcome to the Nightly News podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller in the Nasir Harris podcast studio here at the Boyer House of Central Penn College, Summerdale campus. We just heard from Janet Bixler talking about Swords and Shakespeare coming up in June, on June 7th and 8th. And we are now joined by one of the other co-stars of Swords and Shakespeare, Adrienne Thoman, Student Activities Director. Adrienne, welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Well, we certainly want to chat with you about Swords and Shakespeare, but of course you're here for your take a look at the June calendar. So we will certainly take a look at not only Swords and Shakespeare, but Adrienne's featured 3 coming up in just a few minutes. Also being joined here by Nightly News Vice President Ian Kemmer. Ian, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, Ian, it's always a pleasure to have you down talking about some of the things that we have going on in June. Obviously, this is our last podcast for the term. Each and every term, we come to you weeks 1 through 8 of the term, and then we take weeks 9, 10, 11, and the break off. So we will be back at the beginning of July, in which, Adrienne, you'll be back for that one as well. So we look forward to that. Well, let's start off with something that, so as a little bit of a segue from Janet's previous segment, we want to talk to you about the Swords and Shakespeare, the Shakespearean scenes of combat and conflict that will be taking place in the amphitheater. Let me ask you a question. Have you guys done any kind of practice outdoors in the amphitheater? Where are you doing a lot of your practice right now?
So right now, I mean, it's been raining more days than it has not been. So we have been doing a lot of rehearsals in the theater. We actually are looking forward to this week finally starting to get outside and enjoying the rehearsal space out there. I can't wait. I think it's going to be such a cool venue, like a location to have the show. It's going to just add so much to it.
You know, one of the first things, for some reason, I will never ever forget the very first day that I was working, because I'd been on campus for like meetings and stuff, but I never really got to walk around, and I just went in ATEC and had a meeting and left. My first day here, I got here real early, and I just walked around campus. And I walked down to the amphitheater just around the corner from Boyer House. So for those of you who are wondering where I'm talking about, Adrienne, it's the most underutilized part of our campus, and I wish that we could do more. Now, I know that you've done some things there. What are some other events that have been in the amphitheater in the past?
So we have done bonfires and music events and making s'mores, and I think we had one Halloween. Oh, it was so scary. We had a Halloween like nighttime outdoor movie down there.
That is awesome.
It was terrifying. I forget what the movie was. I was so scared.
But I mean, it's such a beautiful part of campus. And then, honestly, Adrienne, the first time I was ever here, and I went back there and walked back there, I said, why do we not use this more? And I wish we would. And when I found out that Swords and Shakespeare was going to be there, I said, yes, finally, we're really using this space for sort of what it was meant to be used for. I just think it's such a picturesque area of campus, and I just hope so much that the weather's nice so you guys don't have to move it.
I know. It's going to be perfect.
Well,
It's going to be perfect.
I also thought that was what it was going to be for our networking luncheon that unfortunately got rained out. Not only on the date, but the rain date too got rained out. So,
well, we put in the order. Okay, we put in our order. That's what we're getting.
That's awesome. Well, I really wish you the best, and we'll chat about that here with you in just a little bit. Ian, have you ever been up to the fellowship area up there?
Yeah, just for a couple events that Adrienne had, like s'mores. When I first came on campus, they had a bonfire, and it was really cool just to see how that area is set for an actual play for theater. I'm looking forward for the Swords and Shakespeare, and I'll be there both days to see it.
What is your role in the Swords and Shakespeare?
I am the bouncer for the 7th because there's a
bouncer.
Yeah, there's an alumni event there on the 7th.
Well, the alumni event's on the 8th, is Friday the 8th for faculty, staff, and special guests of career services. But the one on the 7th is really just open to anybody.
I'll still be the bouncer. That's what she said. That's what Ms. Bixler said.
What do you mean by bouncer? Like in the club type
Keep
of bouncer?
Keep everybody in line.
Yeah, keeping everybody in line.
Well, I mean, you definitely, that's definitely a position that you would excel in for sure. But have you had a chance to see any of the practices so far?
I saw some of the reenactments of when they used the fight scenes, and they're coming along really well.
So let's go back to you, Adrienne. First of all, have you ever done anything like this before? We obviously know that you are a wonderful actress. We've seen you in multiple shows in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater in the past, of course, Reclaiming My Time, your breakout performance. But have you ever done anything like this?
Well, the sword fighting is definitely new. My first try at Shakespeare was when Professor Bixler did Passions, and I was Cleopatra, and that was a blast. First time I had to memorize Shakespeare, which is quite difficult. But the sword fighting is completely new and so fun. I've done things before where I've had to learn as a Zumba instructor where you've had to learn choreography. And the fight scenes are choreographed, so I know what's coming. But having the weapons and having to learn how I've never used weapons before, so having to learn how to hold them properly and it's a whole new experience. And we are loving it. So much fun.
Well, number one, thank you for being as involved in a theater as you are. I love everything that you do. I love everything that goes on in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater, and of course I did chat about that with Professor Bixler. But this isn't something, I don't know if people maybe don't understand this. This isn't something you're mandated to do. You're doing this in addition to being the most busy person on campus. So
this is what I do in my free time. This is my fun time.
And that's wonderful that not only do you look at it that way, but you also look at it as an opportunity for you to continue to bond with our students as well, which you clearly are. There are many students involved with this. Certainly many community members, alumni as well. But I thank you because, number one, it's so funny because a lot of people think that just because I'm on the podcast and I do things, I write a lot and I put myself out there, that it would be natural just for me to move in front of the stage. And I don't think I'm quite there yet. Even when I did the Big Lebowski, I was unbelievably nervous.
But that was great. It was a really good event.
I appreciate that. And I thought so, too. I thought it went very well.
I learned so much about that movie. It was the first time I really watched it from start to finish. So
I was shocked. That was one thing I was shocked about, how many people said they'd never really seen it fully before.
Yeah, when it's on TV, I see like pieces of it, but never from start to finish, which totally changes the whole thing, makes it way better.
But of course. Well, no, I do want to point out June 7th and 8th, Shakespeare, Swords and Shakespeare in the Student Fellowship area. The easiest way to get there, because there's not really a convenient parking lot, is on the College Hill Road by the basketball courts parking lot, and you can really see it from there. And it's right around the corner from the Boyer House, for those of you who know where that is. So please make sure that you plan on coming out Thursday the 7th for a free show, or Friday the 8th with, there does need to be a registration for the 8th, and that's for faculty, staff, and guests of career services. So, Adrienne, I will be there with bells on to see Swords and Shakespeare.
You'll
love
it.
It's
going to be a great show.
All right, there's a few other things that we want to take a look at here before we get into everybody's favorite segment, Adrienne's Featured 3. One thing that is coming up that we have been talking about, but is the 3rd annual research exhibition that'll take place Wednesday, June 6th from 3 to 5 p.m. in the Conference Center. Adrienne, certainly not only are you the activities director, you're also adjunct faculty here as well. And in your classes, what role did you feel that research took in a lot of these classes, and the importance research takes to our students?
Well, I mean, it's hugely important. When you look at being able to understand how to do research appropriately, to make sure that the information you're gathering is accurate to, especially with all the social media and the false news that has been going around there, it's important to have strong research skills so you can find the correct answers to be able to develop your own viewpoints. So I love seeing that our students are being so industrious and picking their topics and getting their butts in the library and doing all that to put their research together.
Well, and one of the things that we are doing as a club is we are doing sort of a collaborative effort on our poster. And we are actually looking at, almost exactly to your point, what you just said, is we're actually looking at the social media echo chamber. And basically, for any of those of you who are unfamiliar with this concept, it basically talks about the algorithms that operate within Facebook, Twitter, Instagram that show us what we will see in our feed. Because, and I hate using this word obviously because it's not obvious to some or all, but what we see in our feed is determined by an algorithm that is built upon showing us the things that we want to see. Well, if you were, let's just say, for example, a Democrat, and people keep putting up things about, let's say, Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, more than likely you're going to agree with that. You're going to like and comment and share those types of things. So what you're actually doing is perpetuating your own echo chamber. And all that means is that you're only hearing one side of the story. And that is what, to me, as an educator, is one of the most important things that we have to break out of, is this echo chamber. You know, a lot of people in our last presidential election, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, said that they had basically lost friends because whether, maybe they were a Clinton fan and their friend was a Trump fan and they just unfriended them because they didn't want to see that stuff in their feed. But that is what is wrong with our country at this point. We only expose ourselves to such very limited news, and we don't even want to listen to something that disagrees with us. Ian, why do you think it's important to look at both sides of the story?
For once, like with this presidential election, you have to look at both sides, because if one person is going to get elected and not the other person, you got to make sure that that person is the right fit for the job. This election didn't go out as planned as people wanted to. And like you said, people were unfriending friends that were Donald Trump supporters,
or
and
vice versa too.
Yeah. And it's hard to expand on that, because I am a Democrat, and I didn't unfriend my friends that are Trump supporters. I looked at what Trump had to offer, and I thought that he would be a perfect fit for the job. Even if Hillary Clinton would have won, still we had a good battle between two candidates in this election, and I thought that was a pretty good race this year.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that when you are, I don't even want to say you, when Facebook or Twitter or Instagram is determining the messages that you're going to see, and you're only exposed to one side, of course you are going to agree with what you see. And a lot of times, a lot of the reasons why we go one way or another on a specific issue is because that's the only side we've been exposed to. And it's funny, because one of the things that we do want to take a look at in our research exhibition is there is a Twitter account called Trump's Feed. Okay, I encourage everybody to look up this. Donald Trump on Twitter follows something like 30 people, 35 people, something relatively small. And what Trump's Feed does is it recreates what Donald Trump's Twitter feed would look like based on what those 35 people are tweeting.
Wow.
And it is an unbelievably eye-opening to see how even our own president is being put into this social media echo chamber. And it's really quite amazing. So we really look forward to that. But honestly, this is something that we like to do just as a collaborative thing for our group, and we really want to support the librarians in this. But I'll tell you, we see some unbelievably excellent research at these research exhibitions, and this will be the third year out of 3 that the Nightly News is participating. So
I'm always very impressed by
Are
what
you
the students
are
come
you
up
going to
with.
be coming down?
I usually do, like, definitely make a lap and check everything out.
Well, I'll tell you, Adrienne, I know they're looking for judges.
Oh, but
if you would be so
I'm a
inclined.
bad judge. I love them all. I'm a bad judge.
Sometimes those are the best judges, though. But, okay, so the Research Exhibition Summit, please come out Wednesday, June 6th from 3 to 5 p.m. That's going to be in the Conference Center, so come out and see what our students are up to. Well, Adrienne, one more quick note before we move on to Adrienne's Featured 3, and that is coming from something that we talked about in our last podcast. We always look forward each and every year to PedaPalooza. Unfortunately, the week's worth of rain got over on us.
Why does
PedaPalooza.
rain seem to be a common theme for the last several podcasts that we've been here for?
How so?
I feel like every time, one time we talk about, oh, the baseball team, their games are canceled again. Now it's PedaPalooza. Every time I come here, it's something, rain is ruining our parade.
Well, ironically enough, it just so happens to be raining outside today. So, but we did just want to put an announcement out there that one of Adrienne's Featured 3 from May has now been moved to June the 30th, PedaPalooza. That will be from 11 to 4. If you are here over break, this is a really excellent opportunity. And Adrienne, I would imagine that since it's over break, you're going to need some volunteers.
Absolutely. So if you are planning to stay here, or if you're a commuter, we definitely are going to need help that day. If you're free, please let me know.
Was it with the event planners that they did? That was just the day that worked, or it's unfortunate that it's over break.
So they have a committee that they work with to plan the event. So getting all of them to find a date, and also find a date that works with the college calendar, it can be a challenge.
But of course. So PedaPalooza, June 30th from 11 to 4. So if you're looking for volunteer hours and you are going to be here over break or be relatively close, I'd highly suggest that you contact Adrienne to volunteer. Well, Adrienne, it's now time for everyone's favorite segment, Adrienne's featured 3. Adrienne, what is the first event that you'd like to highlight in June?
Number 1, on June the 7th, is a Thursday, we are going to have our annual Activities and Athletics Banquet. Now, this is a time that we bring up all of our student athletes and our student club leaders together, celebrate them and all that they were able to accomplish this past year. They really do some great things. We do awards for community service and grade point averages, and just recognize the amazing things that they are doing outside of the amazing things that they're doing in their classroom. They're doing this in addition, and they're doing a great job of it. So we do an annual banquet that we're able to celebrate that and recognize them. It's going to be in the Conference Center, 12 to 1:30 on June the 7th. You do need to RSVP so we know who's coming. Make sure we have enough food for everybody, but they can look in Student Central or shoot me an email if they can't find the link, and I'll be happy to get them set up.
You know, Ian, last year you had the opportunity to come to the Activities and Athletics Banquet, and we certainly hope that you're coming again this year as Nightly News Vice President. What does it mean to you to come to something like this, as far as reflecting on the achievements that we've had? I mean, honestly, Ian, thinking about all of the things that the Nightly News has done over the last year, and really all of our student clubs have done, and the progress we've made over the last year, I think this kind of gives us a time to reflect. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this opportunity is really just about us as clubs coming together, talking to different clubs and seeing how, they did this year, and, what can we do to, help ourselves. So, but it's also a good time, like, to actually be awarded or be acknowledged about what we did as a club. Like the media club, we came up with the live stream. That was our big achievement this year, that really focused on me and Brian and you and Professor Davis. We all try to make this happen, and it was a good thing that we did.
And we didn't do it for just us.
No, we did it for the athletic department too.
And anybody who is a fan of Central Penn sports, all of the students. I mean, this whole live stream thing has just developed into a life of its own. I mean, we've already got combined over 1,000 views on all these games, which is
incredible,
far and away even above anything that we even anticipated. So it's really quite amazing. Even the fact that this is podcast number 60, the fact that we've been developing excellent content. Cy came out with, and the rest, and you and Yuli and Dalen helped with not only the documentary with Sharon Kelly, but also the documentary with Nasir Harris over the past year. I mean, it's really quite incredible what we've been able to accomplish. But it's not just us; it's the other clubs too. Right. And I think maybe in a way, I wish that. And I think the ICC might be able to do this, but I wish that we knew more about what other clubs were doing so we could help promote them. Because we are obviously able to promote ourselves, and I mean that's part of, what we have going on here. But to be honest, I would love to know more about what some of these other clubs are doing and write about it and let the whole college campus know. Because unfortunately, I think that doesn't happen quite as much as I wish it would. So I'm hoping that that's something the ICC we might be able to talk about in a little bit more detail. All right, Adrienne, what is the second event on Adrienne's Featured 3 for the month of June?
Well, you led right into it with your mention of the amazing things the clubs are doing. Our Black Student Union is doing their second lock-in, which is super fun. They actually use ATEC 200-202. They open that space up. They have it set up with different stations. So they have music, they have video games, they have food, they have dancing, all of this kind of happening, games, all this happening simultaneously in the room. It's June 15th on a Friday night. It starts at 9 p.m. I have that it goes till midnight, but really it just goes till everybody gets really sleepy.
So this might be an all-night type of thing.
Last time, I think, what time did they make it to? I want to say it was 1 or 2, because I may have taken a small nap in the ATEC lobby.
We won't tell.
But it was so much fun. They did a great job putting it together, and one of their big goals of this term was to do it again. So Friday, June the 15th, starting at 9 p.m. in ATEC 200-202.
Fantastic. All right, and for the final event of Adrienne's Featured 3 for the month of June, it is...
the ICC end of term party. So our interclub council, this was a new initiative the Student Government Association started where they really wanted to find a way to bring all of our clubs together, like you said, to share the exciting things that everybody's doing, team up, work together, collaborate.
You know, when I first got this email from you about this, I was very intrigued. Because the one thing that just from looking at our club, yes, we have meetings, we're all very close. But the opportunity for collaboration between other clubs is difficult for several reasons. I mean, even our meeting in our clubs in general has challenges because we don't have that common hour anymore that people don't have class. So clubs are either meeting at times during the day when people have class and people can't come to the meetings, which is an essential part of being in a club, knowing what's going on. But also, even in the afternoons, sometimes we have commuters that leave. Yeah. There's just no convenient time. So at least what I think the ICC is really going to bring to the table is the fact that there is going to be some collaboration. In fact, I'd talked to you about some of the club as far as maximizing. Ian had shared with me the results of the first meeting and talking about maximizing club budgets. Mm-hmm. And you had said, do a collaborative event. This is what this is going to do. I mean, I think this is just tremendous that maybe we can all get together on the same page and start trying to do some of these events with each other.
Not all of our clubs are huge. And then if we combine our efforts, we can make a lot of great things happen. We do it with some events now, the SGA pool party that happens in the summer term. That's typically a collaboration. The clubs each take on different pieces and it comes together beautifully. We do it for Festival of Nations a little bit too, where each club kind of takes a different piece. So I think the more that we give the clubs the opportunity to do that, the better.
I absolutely agree. So this is the end of term party. Now, Adrienne, is this just for people who are involved with clubs, or is this open to everyone?
I think it'll be open to anybody. I'm pretty sure that if they come, any non-club members, I'm sure there will be lots of clubs that would be eager to tell them about what's happening and get them involved in one of those clubs. So
without a doubt.
Yeah.
So Ian, let me just ask you before we sign off, what did you think? So you attended the first ICC meeting. Can you just update the listeners with some of the things that happened at that meeting?
So like you said before, we talked about how to collaborate with other clubs and, putting two clubs in one event to make it happen. And like Adrienne said, the clubs are really small. And what they try to do is they ask different clubs what do they do to bring club members in. And we do, as Media Club, we do an end of the year party, and that normally brings in people that want to join and want to write and want to do podcasts. And it's a good way to influence people to come and join. Some, like SGA, they do the pool party, and then AAB does provide some stuff to it, and then Drama Club does their event there. So it's a good way to actually communicate with other clubs and get their opinions on what they should do. This would be a good event for any club to come out and present what their club does, so that other people can join.
Well, what's interesting, too, about the Interclub Council is, for example, we've had some really good luck with fundraisers. Mm. And maybe that's the type of thing that we can share. Or maybe there have been really successful community service events from some other clubs, and that might be something that we can share, as all of our students do have a community service requirement. But Adrienne, I really think that's great that, I know that you won't take credit for it, but it was certainly an initiative that you helped oversee, and I think this is going to be great. I think the ICC is wonderful, and I really appreciate the opportunity that the Nightly News has to be involved. So,
awesome. Yeah, I appreciate the SGA and all that they did and putting it together.
Quick recap of everything that we talked about today. We're going to start out on June 6th for the research exhibition, the third annual research exhibition. That'll be in the Conference Center from 3 to 5. Thursday, June 7th, the Activities and Athletics Banquet in the Conference Center from 12 to 1:30. Please email Adrienne Thoman at centralpenn.edu or look in Student Central or Central Station for more information about how to RSVP. In addition, we have the Swords and Shakespeare, but of course, on Thursday the 7th and Friday the 8th, come out and see Adrienne do some sword fighting, among other people, of course. On Friday, the June 15th, the BSU lock-in will take place in ATEC 200 and 202 from 9 p.m. until, we'll call it midnight. And finally, the ICC end-of-term party from SGA in the Underground Lounge on June 19th from 4:30 to 7 p.m. Of course, these are not all of the events. In fact, Adrienne, June looks as full as every other month, even with the break. So we appreciate that very much. All right, well, we're going to get out of here today for episode 60. I do want to make special thanks to Adrienne Thoman for spending her time here with us today. Thank you so much, Adrienne, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, as always.
And, of course, Vice President Ian Kemmer. Ian, it's always a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing the student insight.
Yeah, I'm sad to say that this is my last podcast until I come back in the fall.
Well, unfortunately, Ian did have a small injury, and he has to go home over the summer and have surgery. So we wish him well, but of course we hope that he comes back stronger than ever. And of course, Ian, we're going to be calling basketball in the fall, so we need you back. Mm-hmm. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for listening to episode 60, and we'll catch you next time on the Nightly News Podcast.